Patients undergo water-only fasting for anywhere from 5 to 40 days, and then careful refeeding afterwards. We advocate a whole plant food, SOS-free diet.
Anastasia. Rawr. Hello, my friends. We have a great interview today with Dr. Alan Goldhamer of True North Center in California. Their center is doing it right. They do an SOS-free vegan diet, which is salt, oil, and sugar-free for people that come and visit. They also do juice fasting and medically supervised water fasting. They have chiropractors, they have psychologists to help you when you get back into what they call the real world. They also call themselves the last resort because a lot of people that are very sick go to them, or very smart if they want optimal health. So great interview, great guy. He's also the author of The Pleasure Trap. And they also have put out 2 recipe books if you guys are interested in some inspiration for an SOS-free diet and you want to try it out. So it's called the Health Promoting Cookbook and then the Bravo Cookbook as well. Definitely worth checking out. But today we are asking very specific questions to Dr. Alan Goldhamer, and also questions that frankly I couldn't find in any other interviews. So let's go ahead and provide you guys some value. I'm Anastasia Raw on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Obviously, you guys are seeing me here. Feel free to comment below with any suggestions or any questions. I'm happy to answer them as I can, and I'm happy to help. All right, let's get to it. Well, thank you for meeting me for an interview. I really appreciate your time. And I have a couple questions. I was stalking you online, actually, to learn as much as I could, especially about an SOS-free diet and fasting. Some people know this about me, but I've done a 32-day fast on water alone, and I've been just interested in health forever. So, but can you tell us, for people that are not acquainted with your center, True North, in Santa Rosa, a little bit about it?
Well, sure. We're a integrative medical facility. We have a staff that includes doctors of medicine, chiropractic, osteopathy, naturopathy, and psychology. We admit about 1,000 patients a year for medically supervised fasting. We've been doing this for 34 years. The conditions that we treat primarily are conditions of dietary excess, so things like diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune diseases, lymphoma, etc. Patients undergo water-only fasting for anywhere from 5 to 40 days, and then careful refeeding afterwards. We advocate a whole plant food, SOS-free diet. And of course, we have, various doctors with assorted skills that are able to provide, medical supervision and monitoring. So it's a rather unique situation. We're run by the True North Health Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit research foundation. So essentially, we're a human subjects laboratory. We do research on the effect of fasting and diet and the treatment of various conditions, and we document that and publish that. For people that are interested, they can go to our website, healthpromoting.com, and download our studies and all the information they might be interested in on the True North Health Center.
Awesome. Well, that's like a pretty good all around. Yeah, I was pretty impressed actually, because a lot of people that I've personally heard of are, they don't do medically supervised fasting. And again, I know you only have a little bit of time, so I did write down some questions actually.
Certainly.
Sir. So for diet and lifestyle, what do you think about a high-carb, high-free diet? So I have girls ask me all the time about why they're gaining weight on a raw, vegan, or fruitarian diet.
Well, people are gaining weight because they're not eating enough. If they eat enough low-density foods like salad and steamed vegetables, they're going to lose weight. If they're a female, they can expect to lose 2 pounds a week, a male about 3 pounds a week on average. A high nutrition density, low caloric density diet. So big thing is you got to eat more and you got to sleep more. People that don't get enough sleep have lower metabolic rates, they're fatigued, they don't want to exercise. People that don't eat enough leave room for more concentrated caloric foods, and they have trouble with weight loss. Women have more trouble than males because they have estrogen. They're designed as energy-conserving fat storage devices, and as a consequence, they have to work a little harder than males do with testosterone, which is a fat-burning hormone. If you inject women with testosterone, they lose their fat. But then, of course, they get hairy and get cancer and die, so it's not a good strategy. But the point is, males, if you inject estrogen, they get fat. They grow breasts and get hips. Some of these are biological differences. If women are having trouble losing weight, that means we need to first get more sleep, get more exercise, and eat more. Everything's more.
So even if they're bloated from eating too much fruit, you mean eating more like low-density foods?
No, I didn't say fruit. I said salad and steamed vegetables. Low caloric density, high nutrition foods. Fruit are actually high sugar, high caloric density foods compared to salad. They have 3 times the caloric density. So if you're having weight loss issues, maybe we want to eat a little bit of whole fruit and lots of salad and steamed vegetables. Let's think about it. If you eat a pound of salad, that's about 100 calories a pound. Fruit has 300 calories a pound. So it's going to be much easier to control total caloric intake by eating more vegetable materials and not getting too carried away with fruit. And usually it's not whole fruit that's problem. It's fruit juices and dried fruits and processed foods.
Right. Smoothies. Yeah.
If you just eat your fill of oranges, after 1 or 2 or 3 oranges, you're kind of full. But you can easily drink a glass of orange juice that has 6 oranges in it and still be looking for more. So the more you process the food, the easier it is to fool the satiety mechanisms in the brain, and the easier it is to get overweight, even on healthy foods. Now, don't even talk about sugars and white flours and processed, then it's inevitable. But even on a whole food diet, if you have a person that has good plumbing, good absorption, good digestion, and they're female, the problem is they're going to absorb food well. That's a good thing. And may have trouble losing that extra weight unless they eat enough salad and vegetables.
Do you find that people that are transitioning to SOS do feel bloated because they're eating so many greens and so many salads and so many?
When people have debilitated digestive systems and they go on a healthier diet, initially there's a big change in the microflora that lives in their gut. People have about 5 pounds of bacteria living in their gut. That's a living creature living in your gut. Living creatures breathe and drink, eat, and they defecate.
Yes, they do.
So you have 5 pounds of bacteria pooing in you right now. You want those bacteria pooing fertilizer in you, things like vitamin K and nutrients. You don't want them pooing toxic waste like TMAO, trimethylamine oxidase, that can irritate the enamel lining of your blood vessels and lead to cancer and heart disease and other problems. So that means you need to feed your 5 pounds of bacteria the foods they're designed to eat, which is soluble fibers, starchy vegetable materials, sweet potatoes, Hubbard squash, butternut squash, kombucha, not meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products, oil, salt, and sugar. So we advocate a whole plant food diet that's SOS free. SOS stands for the International Symbol of Danger, and it includes chemicals that are added to food like salt, oil, and sugar. So we want to get rid of the salt, oil, and sugar, including the oils like olive oil, even virgin olive oil, or extra virgin olive oil. No matter how inexperienced the oil is, we still want to exclude it from the diet. Because those are foods that are highly concentrated in calories, full of satiety mechanisms of the brain, and lead people to get fat, sick, and miserable.
What do you think about frozen vegetables like Brussels sprouts for convenience?
Well, if you're fortunate enough to live in a place where you can get fresh vegetables, I think they're better. I think they taste better. But fresh, frozen, organically grown vegetables that are not salted may be a perfectly acceptable second-tier source of food.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, there's so much conflicting information. It's kind of...
Well, say, look, if you live in California, it's not an issue because you can get fresh fruits and vegetables all year long. So my advice is move to California.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, New England's pretty cool, actually. But so here's a question about sleep. So Dr. McDougall's book says that sleep is actually a depressant and recommends less sleep. But you guys recommend the book Power Sleep by James Moss. And it says we need around 10 hours of sleep as we did before the light bulb was invented. So what would you say to that?
Well, I think that it's a good thing that not everybody agrees with us, because if everybody agreed with us, you wouldn't need us.
Okay.
And so this is one of the few areas that I disagree with Dr. McDougall. He didn't really fully appreciate the importance of sleep, I think, when he wrote one of his books. And as a consequence, I think he underestimates the value that sleep plays. And this is a debate that he and I have had on an ongoing basis for many years. We disagreed about 2 things, really. One was the importance of sleep, and the second was the flexibility of salt in the diet. We believe that it's much better to restrict sodium intake, and he's a little bit more flexible with that. And I think the proof is starting to shift in our direction as more and more data becomes available talking about the negative consequences of excess salt in the diet. Ultimately, I think we'll be proven right on both of these points.
Oh, there you go.
And I think you need to get enough sleep that you can awake spontaneously feeling refreshed. That's going to vary. Younger kids, people under stress need more sleep than people perhaps that are under less stress. People that eat well don't need quite as much sleep as people that don't. People that exercise appropriately but not excessively may not need quite as much sleep. So the point is, it's not 5 hours. It's going to be somewhere between 7 and 10 hours, depending on the person and depending on their needs. Some people sleep more efficiently than others. Even 10 hours won't be enough for people that have sleep apnea and other problems where the quality of their sleep is disrupted. You want to sleep in a cool, dark, and quiet place. You want to get regular sleep patterns. And for people, for example, that have behaviors like they meditate or other things, they may not need quite as much sleep as people who don't engage in those behaviors. So let's not, it's like saying, well, everybody should have 2,016 calories. Well, no, there's a bit of variation in the needs of different people in the different, right? So there's a range. The point is, though, if you have to wake up and use a highly addictive nervous system stimulant just to function in the form of caffeine, you're not getting enough sleep. Healing takes place during non-REM deep sleep. If you don't get enough sleep, you won't heal as well. People that don't sleep as well have trouble with weight loss. One of the important things is getting people properly rested. So not only is their metabolic rate and activity normal, but they have the energy and to be able to engage in normal levels of activity.
Well, that's good because I love sleeping, so I'm so glad to hear that, actually. Well, now that you mentioned weight loss, especially for athletes and models, every pound of fat matters dramatically. And obviously the average person loves to be slim, especially women. But in the book Skinny Bitch, they recommend occasional weekend fasts to keep slim. I mean, can you fast for weight loss? Like if somebody has like 20 or 30 pounds?
I wouldn't recommend water-only fasting as a weight loss tool, but I would recommend intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting might mean limiting the number of hours a day that you're feeding. Let's say, for example, you decide to do all of your feeding in an 8-hour window, say between 10 in the morning and 6 p.m. At night, okay? And you have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner during that period. That would mean you would have a 16-hour period of fasting every night. And even that amount of fasting, according to Walter Longo and others, even 16 hours of fasting is enough to induce metabolic changes that might be associated with improving health. So narrowing the feeding window every day, so you aren't eating early in the morning till late at night continuously, may have some benefit, both in terms of weight control as well as inducing metabolic changes associated with fasting. In addition, if you're trying to lose weight, I find if patients will limit their caloric intake, maybe 1 day a week or even possibly 2 days a week, to 600 calories by eating just raw fruit and vegetable material, so whole fruit and vegetables, that would reduce their caloric intake if they had 2 pounds of fruit and 2 pounds of salad, which is quite a bit of food, 4 pounds of food. But it's about 600 calories, maybe 800 calories, somewhere in that range. By doing that, that might facilitate additional weight loss. What I recommend is doing prolonged water-only fasting as a weight loss tool. It's a little bit of a biologically expensive approach to take, particularly if you're doing 2 or 3 days of fasting for the purpose of weight loss. It has not been shown to be effective at sustaining weight loss. So we recommend water fasting. We recommend it in a medically supervised setting for however long, up to 40 days, that it needs to correct the problem. For weight control, we recommend just eat good every day. And if you're a woman, you're going to lose 2 pounds a week down to your optimum weight. It's 100 pounds a year. How fast do you think you have to lose this stuff? You know, slow and steady is really a successful strategy for weight loss.
Everybody wants to lose weight yesterday, though. Come on.
Understood.
So some people into intermittent fasting recommend sparkling water, still though with fake sugars, nothing like stevia, but to aid in a sense of fullness before their eating windows. What is your opinion about that in carbonated water?
Well, we use a little bit of, we take distilled water and we have a carbonator that will do for people that have nausea. When they're fasting, sometimes there's a little bit of nausea. I think that that's the only time I would really recommend it. It's not that it's particularly harmful, because, and there may even be a little bit to the distension sensation because you get the gas and the bloating that goes along with it. But the fact is, for most patients, there is no sense of fullness problem if their blood sugar and insulin isn't bouncing all around from eating too much sugar. And that what we're talking about is a high mineral content diet. So they're eating a lot of salad, a lot of steamed vegetables. And as a consequence, we don't have the insulin and blood sugar vacillation, so hunger is usually not a limiting factor.
I think it dies down after 2 days, especially of fasting, right? Anyway. But you're talking about regular eating.
I'm not even talking about fasting. I'm just talking about in a normal feeding state. Some of the problems people have with cravings and binging and stuff is as a consequence of their brain thinking they're going into deprivation mode because their blood sugar levels are dropping or their blood insulin levels are being screwed up. And so by eating healthy every single day, what happens is blood sugar levels, blood insulin levels tend to stabilize. Cravings and all of this kind of stuff tends to become much less of an issue.
Okay. I think there's like a certain period of time where it stabilizes from like, you call it like neuroadaptation for like fat and then also salt and that sort of thing. Yeah,
we know it takes about a month to neuroadapt to a low-salt diet. It can take as much as 3 months to neuroadapt to a low-fat diet, and that without fasting. That's one of the reasons we use fasting, not so much for weight loss, but to clear the palate, make good food taste good, get people to be able to make this adaptation more successfully. After fasting, good food tastes good. Before fasting, it can sometimes be tasteless swell because people addicted to the pleasure trap, the artificial stimulation of dopamine in the brain that leads people to be fat, sick, and miserable.
Yeah.
For people who want to understand the pleasure trap more, they should read our book, The Pleasure Trap, or they can get the new audio version that was done by Chef AJ. That's really good. If you like to listen rather than to read, the audio version of The Pleasure Trap is excellent.
Yeah, I was just listening to that yesterday, actually. Chef AJ is, like, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Yeah. About fasting, what signs would cut a fast short? Because some side effects are like vomiting and nausea, so...
Well, yeah, these are common effects in fasting as people are detoxifying. Mobilization of intermediary products and metabolites and toxic products results in all kinds of symptoms from skin rashes, nausea, vomiting, headache, irritability. And then that goes away. And then people stabilize, and then they get well and hopefully have a good outcome. But there are things that we do monitor. When patients are staying at the True North Health Center, we have physicians that do their intake, exit exam, and monitor their care. We have really unique doctors in the sense they're not idiots, so they can do this job effectively. They're seen twice a day by a staff doctor where we take their vitals, make sure they're still alive, answer their questions. We have 3 educational classes a day, or I call them brainwashing classes, where we go through a whole educational process of what to eat, how to prepare, yoga, meditation, all this kind of stuff.
Nice.
And then they have an exit exam with a physician where a program is designed. And we do ask people to do one thing. We ask them to strictly stick to the program, but just for 50 years. So once we get our 50-year follow-up, then they're free to go do whatever they want. But until then, we expect them to stick strictly to a whole plant food, SOS-free diet, get regular exercise and appropriate sleep.
That sounds reasonable. What do you think about dry fasting? I've never tried it.
Yeah, dry fasting is not physiologically sound because what happens is without a solute to be able to put the toxin into, you put the body under a lot of physiological stress without being able to effectively eliminate that material. So I wouldn't recommend dry fasting. It does result in dehydration, and if you continue it, it will result in death. Even before death, people get involved in hallucinations and other problems from the effect of dehydration. So although I do advocate water-only fasting, I don't advocate fasting without water. That's not something that we do.
Okay. Yeah, you guys serve distilled water, I think, as much as people want, right? No limits on that. So.
Well, yeah, you have to be, even a little bit there, you got to be careful in saying as much as you want, because even too much water, you can flush out your electrolytes, you can get food, a water shock, it can actually be a serious problem. So it is possible to overdo water. I mean, to the extreme, it's called drowning, isn't it? But so too much water is an issue, but what we do is we monitor the patient's urine-specific gravity, so we're making sure that they're in a reasonable target. Sometimes we do have to ask people to cut back a little bit on their intake. Yeah, if they're having problems maintaining electrolyte balance. That's not as common. Mostly we're trying to encourage people to drink enough so the urine's not overly concentrated and they have something to eliminate the materials that the body is working so hard at mobilizing.
Okay. After the fast, can people continue to slim down with a proper diet suited to their needs, or are they guaranteed to regain weight?
Well, they're going to regain weight, but they're not going to regain fat. Because what happens when you go on a fast is you get a little bit dehydrated, and you lose glycogen, the carbohydrate stores in your muscle. So as soon as you start eating, you put that pound of glycogen back into your muscles, and along with it goes 4 pounds of fluid. So you will rehydrate. You will gain at least 4 or 5 pounds, but it's not fat. It's the fluid and the carbohydrate and the fiber that always lives in the body in the normal state. So while you're gaining on the scale, you're still losing fat. And you will lose 2 pounds a week down to your optimum weight if you're a female. And if you're a male, it's going to be closer to 3 pounds. Now, initially after fasting, because of this rehydration and replenishment of glycogen stores, you see weight on the scale go up, and then it stabilizes, then it starts losing again.
Oh, okay.
So, and if you are foolish and you go back to poisoning yourself with things like salt, you may hold additional fluids and get some of that bloat back that you might have had before. But again, when you're feeding people a healthy diet, they're not going to be gaining a bunch of fat because they're eating a bunch of vegetables. So you have to realize the difference between fat loss and weight loss. So, you want to get to optimum percent body fat. You don't want to be carrying excess fat around necessarily, but the scale can be a little bit deceptive. Because if you're gaining muscle, for example, muscle is much denser than fat. So people often call me up and say, well, I don't understand. I keep gaining weight. And I say, well, are you getting skinnier? Well, yeah, I've dropped the whole dress size and whatever. Well, yeah, because they've gone from being deconditioned to building some muscle tone back. And the muscle, although it's very dense and heavy, it doesn't represent a health compromise. So you want to be careful in not getting too confused about the scale versus your overall body weight, percent body fat, and health.
Okay. So people don't people don't get intense cravings afterwards unless they're messing with their blood sugar levels.
Well, they can if they go back to eating poisonous, toxic foods, just like alcoholics. If they go back to drinking, sure, they're going to get cravings again. And if you go back to eating greasy, fatty, slimy, processed, dead, decaying flesh or chocolate or other stuff, sure, you can rekindle those addictions from the past. They don't just disappear. You know, with fasting, it's not curing anything. It's managing everything. So you're managing the condition. If you manage weight loss by eating a healthy diet, you'll maintain your weight loss. If you go back to doing the things that caused the problem, well, it's likely to come back again, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I like how your center does refeeding. I like how your center has unrestricted feeding for people that aren't eligible for fasting, and then also, is it like liquid fasting? I think like green juices and stuff like that, as well as actual fasting.
Yeah. Well, it's unrestricted feeding. Normally, if you're eating a whole natural foods diet of fruit, salad, and steamed vegetables, you don't have to worry too much about the quantity because that's naturally self-limiting. And so, now, again, some women find if they want to maintain their svelte figure, which might even be slightly less than what their biological, normal might be, they may have to restrict even some whole natural foods like complex carbohydrates, rice, beans. They may not be able to eat those foods with abandon without and maintain that, heroin addict slim look that they
that takes
from
work.
fashion magazines. So, there's a difference between what they think, what some people think is optimal weight from a health standpoint, from an aesthetic standpoint, or even from an athletic performance standpoint. Some of the things you do to maximize athletic performance wouldn't necessarily be health promoting. So, and some of the things you do to maintain it so you can have pictures taken and the bones stick out in your face for, that type of thing, that might not necessarily be optimal health. For example, many women, particularly women athletes, if they let their percent body fat get too low, they'll actually, body will go into conservation mode, stop ovulating. These aren't necessarily healthy states. So a woman is going to maintain a higher percent body fat than a man will in a healthy state. And that's a normal, healthy process. So sometimes we have to be careful. Sometimes people's images of what their ideal weight is isn't necessarily what their brain's idea of what healthy weight would be. So they may be a few pounds heavier than what they think they want to be, even though, clearly that's a normal healthy balance. But you're not going to see obesity in any of this case. So if people are obese, we know there's something out of balance there. And it's almost always, what they're putting in their mouth.
Yeah. Could it be hormones as well?
Hormonal balance can play a huge role, but it does it, a lot of it's indirectly. Hormonal imbalances can trigger and affect satiety and apathetic mechanisms and lead to overeating. Some people are eating not even because they're hungry, but because they're upset or they're emotional or they're angry. I have one woman told me that she only eats chocolate when her husband makes her mad. I told people in the future, next time your husband makes you mad, make him eat chocolate. If he's making you mad, why should you suffer? Make him eat it.
Yeah, that's a good perspective, actually. How did you get your first fasting patient? How is starting your retreat center in the beginning?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be exposed to some of the doctors that did this kind of work. I went and studied with Albert Burke in Sydney, Australia. I knew Dr. Gerald Benish. And so by the time I was out of school, I had already established a relationship with these doctors, and they referred us patients that were interested in fasting supervision. It didn't take very long because we do something so unique clinics, and that's where people can actually get well. Under conventional medical care, for example, with high blood pressure, the medical doctors that treat patients with drugs will tell them, take these drugs, and we promise you, if you do exactly what you're told, you'll never get well. You'll be sick the rest of your life. We promise you. Whereas when we see patients with high blood pressure, our expectation is they will normalize their blood pressure, eliminate the need for medication, and to the degree that they're willing to do dangerous and radical things like eat well and exercise, they can sustain those results. And so it's such a unique thing. It doesn't take long for people to refer other people to you because of the results. They don't like what we do, but they do like the end result.
Yeah, you're pretty unique, actually. I mean, your center. I would think that by now there would be more, but I mean, is there an online resource to find? Because you can find vegetarian doctors nowadays, but is there a resource to find centers like yours? Yeah,
there's 5 facilities that are run by doctors that we know and have trained, and that are doing fasting supervision. Most of them are small clinics, and we do refer people to those. For people that are looking for a regional location or for unfortunately, right now, we book quite a bit ahead. So sometimes we have to refer them out just because we can't accommodate them quickly enough.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys are the hub. So just call Goldhamer.
Well, if you go to our website, healthpromoting.com, all the information that people are going to need is going to be achievable there.
I think you guys have like a TV. You can watch videos and stuff like that as well.
It's a great resource. TV, a lot of videos, a lot of webinars, sure.
So one of my life goals is to open up a retreat center. How could one, without becoming a medical doctor, host fasting safely?
Well, yeah, there's no problem at all because medical doctors are desperate to look for some meaning in their life nowadays because they know what they do doesn't work. Yeah. And so many of them are interested in training and learning how to do this. The economics are a little bit difficult on retreat centers, and as a consequence, I think the answer would just be hire a physician. And one of the services that the True North Health Center offers is we train doctors to do this, and there's no cost for that. So doctors can come to True North Health, learn how to do this safely and effectively as part of our internship and residency program, and then they would be available, to help operate facilities anywhere in the world. And that's what we're trying to encourage, is more doctors to go out and get affiliated with retreat centers. Many doctors that make good doctors are not particularly good businessmen, so they may not be the ones opening facilities. Some of the people that are really good business people don't happen to be doctors, right. And so partnerships is really a good thing to do. It's where you find a doctor that wants to do something worthwhile with their life, go to heaven instead of hell, and you hire them to come in, do the fasting supervision, the dietary stuff, and then the people that are good at business can run the business operation and stuff, so it can make it work.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a win-win, I think. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Quick questions about after the fast. Okay. What's the danger of refeeding on full plant-based diet immediately following a fast? So like Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes the day of breaking the fast.
Well, it's a little bit concentrated. So what we find works better is to start for every week of fasting, to start with a day of fresh fruit and vegetable juices without the fiber. You want to give the system a chance to fire up. A lot of the materials that have been mobilized during fasting are actually processed and eliminated after fasting. And we find that works better if we just ease the person back in. So we start with some fresh fruit and vegetable juices. If that goes okay, then we do whole fruit and vegetables. Then we might do steamed vegetables. Then, as a few days go on, now we might get into more concentrated foods, like, fat-rich foods like nuts or avocado, steamed starchy vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes. Eventually, assuming it's appropriate for that person, we might be able to get into non-glutinous grains or beans. And so by the time they leave, about half the length of the fast, they're back to a whole mixed whole plant food SOS-free diet. Now, obviously, you have to modify the diet to meet the needs. Not everybody can eat, for example, grains and beans because they don't do well with lectins or whatever. Some people don't do well with too much fruit because they're still struggling with blood sugar regulation. So you have to tweak it a little bit. But it's always whole plant foods, and it's always, enough but not too much in order to be able to meet their needs.
Well, that's another reason why I like your center, too. You individualize it to the patient instead of saying, well, this is how it is, and you need to adjust to... we have
to adjust to the patient because patients are different. A 96-year-old woman who's had her colon removed is different than a 22-year-old manual worker that's burning 3,500 calories a day. So it doesn't make any sense that one specific little pattern is going to meet absolutely everybody's needs all at the same time. So we do try to modify our recommendations so that the person can be successful. Because, as a research-based facility, we're interested in long-term outcome data. So we're stuck not just giving people what they want, but we have to give them what they need so they can be successful over the long run in order to get the long-term outcome data that we're looking for.
Yeah, of course. Oh, so when you said it was concentrated foods, what's the danger of them refeeding on too concentrated foods right away?
Well, when you first come off a fast, digestive system has been kind of scaled down. You want to kind of increase the ability of the body to digest, and they're doing a lot of heavy detox. So you don't want to overload the system and slow that process down. So it's just a way of letting everything fire up and still clear out. And, we've been doing this a while, 34 years, 16,000 people through this program. We've experimented with different types of approaches, and this definitely appears to be the most consistent. Now, there's some variations. Some people, for example, don't do well with juices. They're too processed, so we'll break the fast on a whole fruit. We might use some watermelon, or we might use some greens. And, we just have to watch out for too much initial fiber, too much reactivity, particularly in patients that have colitis or other problems. You have to modify the program.
Yeah, I think you guys stay away from enemas for the most part, as much as possible.
Usually you can avoid the use of enemas by getting people to feed properly before fasting and then to feed properly after fasting. The bowels work really well. There are some times where, people have had difficulties. And so there may be a time where you have to consider occasional therapeutic intervention in many forms. And an enema clonic is something that rarely, but occasionally has to come up for various reasons. But, the idea is to get the body working properly. The idea that you have to be a bowel laundry in order to clear body, I don't agree with that. That's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, yeah. So what's that was actually most of the questions that I had put aside. What is something that what's your vision for the center that you do run right now? Like, what do you get up in the morning excited about?
Well, one is the development of our research. We're publishing papers in the British Medical Journal. We're working with UC Davis, with Stanford University. We've got a project coming up with the Mayo Clinic on primary prevention of stroke. We finished a project with Washington University and the Buck Institute looking at biomarker changes in fasting. So fasting research is something that I'm really passionate about. And the clinic has given us the opportunity now to pursue that in a way and really encourage that research. We're also interested in training other doctors about the importance of diet and lifestyle as well as fasting. And so we have our internship program. I go to the various schools and do grand rounds at schools around the country. We've written the Pleasure Trap book, which we're really pleased with. And now in its audio version, we have the Health Promoting Cookbook, the Bravo Cookbook, to give people vegan SOS-free recipes that are simple enough to make a vegan. I can do them. I like working with patients. We have, between 60 and 80 patients staying with us at a time. They're fascinating people from all over the world. Half our people come from out of state, 15% from foreign countries. That's really a fabulous thing. We have over 60 people that work on the staff at the True North Health Center. It's a really joy to be able to go to work and work with people that are interesting to see every day. And you just kind of hear what they're up to and what they're thinking. And we've got, a lot of different departments, a lot of different people that make, it's hard not to be excited. And plus, we have 3 meals a day of whole plant food. That's what we got, where you don't have to shop or chop. Or, it's what a tremendous benefit to be working at the center and taking advantage of that on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know exactly what the answer is to your question, except that pretty much everything I'm doing I'm excited about, including we offer a service that might be of interest to your listeners. If people are interested in what we do and they want to know if anything that we think about might help them, they can go onto our website at healthpromoting.com. They can complete the registration forms, which essentially gets us their medical history. And they can call me for a free phone conversation. So they can call our office, and I will be happy to tell them if fasting is appropriate or not, if anything that we do might be relevant, or I'll help match them up with a doctor if they need a doctor, either whether it's on our staff or some of the doctors out in the field, depending where they live, that we know that are not idiots and can be helpful to them. And so there's no cost for that. I think it's a really good service. And I spend a lot of my time, trying to service those calls every day.
Yeah, that's a great resource. I was going to ask where is the best place to reach you, but yeah, your website and the free consult I think is a great service for people. Plus the books, as you mentioned, The Pleasure Trap. I actually read it first about 5 years ago. Yeah, great game changer. That was really good.
I like The Pleasure Trap, Mastering the Hidden Force That Undermines Health and Happiness. It's a disturbing book. It does not tell people what they want to hear, but it does tell them what they need to know to get and stay healthy.
Yeah, which is what we need. Yeah, that's great. Is there anything else you would like to know, people? It sounds like I'll also put in the show notes sort of like where to find you and the resource, and they can fill out that registration form to get in touch with you.
Well, the thing I end with is that, health is the result of healthful living. If people want to get healthy and they want to stay healthy, they're going to have to pay the price. And the price is healthful living. And healthful living basically involves getting a health-promoting diet, regular exercise, and abundant sleep. So you get the diet, sleep, and exercise, then you end up getting healthy enough you don't have time to worry about too much else.
It sounds simple.
It's very simple to understand. It's very difficult to do because people live in a world designed to make them fat, sick, and miserable. And everywhere they go, the energy vampires will try to undermine their success because energy vampires do what they do best, and that's make other people as sick and miserable as they are. So by comparison, they don't have to feel so bad.
Yeah, I also want to mention that you guys are a non-profit, so your rates to stay with you guys are actually really reasonable comparative to a lot of other places.
Yeah, we have a rate of $149 a night as a base rate for a private room with a shared bathroom, and that includes whether it's all their meals or fasting supervision, twice daily visits with the staff doctors during rounds, 3 times a day educational classes, our video educational program, doing their laundry, intra-U.S. calling, everything's including fees and taxes.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really beat that, I think, for a medically supervised setting. The downside is we serve whole plant food diet that's free of salt, oil, and sugar, and we do fasting supervision. So it's only going to be of interest to people that are really serious about getting healthy.
That's great. Yeah, we need more centers like yours in the world. So, well, I really respect and appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing our information with your viewers.
Absolutely. Oh, and if you ever need a healthy subject, I'm happy to participate in some studies.
Right.
Go. Take care. Hey guys, so that was Dr. Alan Goldhamer, and it is so hot here in Connecticut. I'm like trying to keep my cool right now. But yeah, what a great guy, right? And so when I start my retreat center one day, that is one of my goals, is to have a center like that, where we can do fasting, acro yoga, just like a center where you can become your best and most joyous. But he's doing a great thing. I'm so glad that I was able to ask him some of these questions that I couldn't find anywhere else online, actually. So really nice to have a voice like his out on the world, especially when there's so much confusing, kind of like dry fasting versus, you know, fasting with water, or like never fast, and like, or intermittent fasting is the best, or, you know, fruitarian diet, or raw vegan, high fat, or just all these battling camps, or paleo, or, you know, ketogenic. So just really simple, back to the basics, backed by science. I really like that. And not trying to cheat the system, but work with your body. So definitely great information. Again, any of the resources mentioned here I'll have in the show notes. So The Pleasure Trap, great book, highly recommend it, especially the audiobook with Chef AJ reading it. She's really awesome. So I recommend that. Also, the Bravo cookbook, which they just came out, SOS free, which is salt, oil, and sugar free. And then also the health promoting cookbook as well. So if you need resources and recipes, otherwise all of those, I would just do it all. Just look up all of it and learn as much as you can. So feel free to comment below with any questions you guys have, any comments. Did you like this? Do you want to see more interviews? I'm happy to help you as I can. Again, I've fasted for 32 days on water alone. Not supported as much as his center does, but I've definitely done it before. So again, I'm happy to help you as much as I can. And of course, AnastasiaRaw.com for a raw vegan recipe book, which is actually fat-free for the most part. So no salt and stuff like that as well. So please feel free to check that out. Also affordable. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And yes, let's all become our best together.